With the 4th of July in just a couple of days, there's sure to be loads of fun out on the water. But it's important that everyone in the community stays safe when doing so. The West Bloomfield Police Department has issued out reminders of the dangers of boating while drinking, as up to 70% of water recreation deaths for teens and adults involve the use of alcohol. Joining us on the Splash Live right now, we have Lieutenant Todd Metcalf with the West Bloomfield Police Department to help provide some guidance for staying safe this holiday. Todd, great to have you with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Of course. Glad to have you here with us. Very important conversation to be having around this time of year. Let's jump right into it. What are some of the most common misconceptions people have about drinking while boating?
Well, that it's not as serious. Drinking and boating is not as serious as drinking and driving, which could be farther from the truth. Obviously, boats are on a very unstable platform. A lot of people don't own boats. A lot of people drive, though, a vehicle, so they forget that they get in a motor vehicle, which is a daily occurrence, to go to work, to go to pick up their children or do stuff like that. It's just something that they do every day. A lot of people don't own boats, so when they get on a boat, they think it's vacation, which it is, fun, having a good time, and drinking becomes it's overlooked on the roadways. So it's actually more dangerous because of that misconception right there that it's not as serious, which it is, in fact, just as serious.
You're absolutely right. It's one of those things where I think if people got behind the wheel of a boat, they would understand just how difficult it could be to navigate that throughout the water. I've driven a boat before. I know how dangerous it can be when not done properly. How does operating a boat under the influence compare legally and physically to driving a car under the influence?
Well, the penalties are exactly the same. Everything's exactly the same. The same amount of VAC in your limit and your body is exactly the same as on the roadway operating a motor vehicle, which can be a 2-ton automobile. People forget that when they're on land, the land is stable, so they can kind of gauge their intoxication level when they're at a party at a friend's house. On a boat with the waves and stuff like that, it's not easy to determine with the weather and the heat. So when it comes to the legalities, it's exactly the same thing. It's a crime over 0.08. It's the same guidelines as driving a motor vehicle on the roadway, and be mindful of that. It doesn't matter how much you drink, 0.08 across the board. Anything over that, and you can be arrested.
That's absolutely right. 0.08. You definitely don't want to be above that limit. Todd, what penalties could somebody face if they are convicted of boating under the influence here in Michigan?
Well, just touch base on the 0.08. You still can be arrested for a 0.06, a 0.07 in your system. It's all about being impaired. So 0.08 is the illegal limit, we like to call it. I like to call it anyway. So anything over that is a guaranteed arrest. But underneath that, you still can be arrested at a 0.06 for being impaired. Getting back to your question, convicted, first offense for operating while impaired or intoxicated for boating or driving a vehicle is a 93-day misdemeanor. That's across the board for both vehicles. If you get caught for a second offense, that's a 1-year misdemeanor. And a third offense is a 5-year felony, which is in lifetime. So if you get a charge for a third offense within a lifetime, that's a felony. That's bare minimum charges. That's if no injuries happen, simple getting pulled over, intoxicated, those are the penalties. And that's not including probation, not including fines and costs, your insurance for your vehicles, which will skyrocket. So that's just the best case scenario if you're caught.
Even still, very serious consequences for boating under the influence. Definitely something everybody will want to avoid. Now, Todd, what are the signs law enforcement looks for when identifying impaired boaters out on the water?
Well, obviously, there's some challenges on the water. It's like I said, there's no lanes to follow. There is direction of travel, but people are out there boating around trying to avoid each other, stuff like that. On the roadway, obviously, we have lanes. But the most common thing that we look for is reckless and careless driving. Obviously, those boats will stand out with people being reckless and just being boisterous on the boat. Those are the main things that you look out for: driving too close to other boats, causing larger wakes, disregarding the no wake zones, and just people trying to relax on their own and have a good time. Those are the main things. And obviously we get phone calls, which we encourage the most from citizens. That helps us catch a lot of individuals on the roadway that are speeding or intoxicated, and same thing applies on the waterways. We get phone calls of intoxicated boaters. Help us look for them.
That's right. The citizens play a big role in helping you guys to identify these offenders and to help serve some justice. Now, I would imagine that alcohol is not the only substance that can impair a boater's ability. What are some other substances that can lead to legal consequences?
That's a very good point. That is correct. Alcohol is one item that can cause intoxication. That's obviously easy to detect at times. There's an odor that comes from a person's breath, and obviously some eye movements of that nature. When it comes to other items, what I'm looking for here, other substances, I'm sorry, people forget that prescription can cause impairment. Just because you're prescribed an item from the doctor, whether it's a pain medication or stuff like that, over uses of that stuff can cause impairment. Not to mention your illegal drugs. Just because you don't like alcohol doesn't mean if you consume heroin or inject cocaine or sniff cocaine, even marijuana in your system, those all can be related. And obviously at first glance, we would not know that, but there may be a smell, but we go through sobriety tests and the blood work would indicate what factors and what levels of those substances are in your system, which are all illegal.
Lieutenant Todd Metcalf with the West Bloomfield Police Department is joining us right now on the Splash Live for a discussion on boating safety this holiday weekend and the dangers of drinking while boating. Now, Todd, most importantly with this holiday weekend, obviously we want everybody to have some fun, but we want everybody to stay safe regardless of what happens. What safety tips would you recommend for families heading out on the water for this 4th of July weekend?
Absolutely. Well, first off, I'd like to point out that I'm a human being as well. I have a place up north on a lake. I like to go boating up there with family and friends, so I'm not immune. I mean, I go out there every time I understand. Safety tips, obviously there's no seatbelts like in cars, but make sure everybody's got a life preserver. And people always ask me, hey, Todd, you're a cop. What do you do nowadays with all the stuff going on with the wars and you drive to religious facilities? Just the main thing I tell people is be aware of your surroundings, whether you're driving a boat, whether you're driving a car, whether you're traveling somewhere, always be aware of your surroundings. Don't be afraid to leave the home, but just, if you're on the lake and you see a party, some chaos in one section, maybe go to the other side of the lake and keep your family safe from that area. You just don't know. Just be mindful of your surroundings, make sure your safety equipment's in place, and that's the best thing I can do. And enjoy life, have fun, but be mindful of your surroundings.
That's right. Be mindful of your surroundings. You can still have fun, but make sure that it's within your limits and that it's not endangering anybody else. And if you are going to be drinking out on the water, it's very important. Talk about how important it would be to have a designated sober operator on board, and how should that be arranged ahead of time?
Well, I mean, know your people. Like I tell, as I climb the ladder here as a boss, you got to know your surroundings, know your people. If you have a bunch of people come onto your boat and somebody volunteers to be a designated driver, is this somebody that can't control themselves or will sneak a drink on the side, or they've had drinking problems in the past? May not somebody you want to rely on. If Uncle Bob, for example, doesn't drink at all and he wants to come along, there's your driver. So be mindful of who you have on your boat and who you trust. And obviously, a designated driver is key. Even when you're on land, Ubers and Lyfts could be the difference between a $60 ride home in safety to sitting in jail overnight. So be mindful of that.
That's absolutely right. And you touched on this just a little bit ago, but what should passengers and fellow boaters do if they suspect someone is operating a vessel while impaired?
Excellent. We encourage people not to engage these individuals. You just don't know the stability, what can happen. But do the best you can as a witness. Gather the boat's description, the number on the side of the hull. Get the best description as you possibly can to provide to a 911 provider if you want to call from there. Oakland County Sheriff's Marine Division is the full authority on the lakes in West Bloomfield. So if you know a deputy's on the water, maybe seek him and her out. But again, don't approach the person and try to detain them. Just get the best description possible and keep your distance. And call the emergency personnel out there.
All important information to keep in mind. Todd, last question before we wrap things up. Where can residents learn more about boating laws and safe boating practices in Michigan?
Well, there's this little thing called the internet. So Google is obviously, even as police officers on the road, if we're out driving around, we get stumped on something, we'll pull up the internet, and obviously like the motor vehicle code book has all this stuff in there. But if you have any questions, you can just type it in. It'll tell you everything you need to know about the Michigan laws, compile laws. And if you want to go into a little more in-depth conversation or find out a little more about boating and intoxication or drinking on the waterways, the Oakland County Sheriff's Department Marine Division is, like I said, the full authority. We do not have a Marine Division here at West Bloomfield, so our authority pretty much stops at the shore, and we assist that way. But anything that happens, a major event, is the Oakland County Sheriff's Marine Division. So they'd be a one person to talk to. They can talk to them over there, their supervisors, if you have any more in-depth conversations.
All great information right at our fingertips. Todd, thank you so much for joining us today here in the Splash Live.
Thanks for having me. Take care, guys. Have a great holiday.